our first kid just coming earlier than I was anticipating. But in
Oh,
actuality, it was only like 2 days or something like that. But
okay.
I just had like work stuff that wasn't really as settled as it should have been by then.
Okay.
And so I remember being like, after the kid was born, that night, when the kid sleeps the first like 12 hours or whatever, I was just
Okay.
like trying to wrap up work on my computer, like staying up the whole night. And so
Oh, wow.
it's kind of silly on my end, actually. I, I didn't really have a lot of or good enough foresight.
Oh, but I mean, you can't really plan for that sometimes, though, right? Or you
Yeah,
try to,
no,
yeah.
I've seen a graph of the distribution of births
Yeah.
relative to the expected due date, and it's like I think it's somewhere like if I remember correctly, it's somewhere around 10%, 8%, something like that, lie on the actual day that
Mm.
is the expected due date, and then there's just like a distribution from there.
I believe the distribution is skewed early, and then so it's mostly early, and then the 10-15% for on time, and then some later is
Yeah, and
what
I
I.
think there might also be some they induce because they don't want the kid to be too big
Right.
Yeah,
before it
yeah,
starts to come out. So there might be, yeah, some just okay, this is gone long enough. Let's induce the labor with
right.
Yeah.
Epidural.
medicine.
Yeah, before we get started, if I turn on my heater, it's too damn loud. If I don't, I'm freezing in Japan right now. It's literally it's snowing outside.
It's literally freezing. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw pictures of Osaka and it's like covered in snow as well.
Osaka? Okay, I don't know. I don't know if you can see from my window. Oh, we're recording, by the way. I don't know
Yeah,
if we can
we're
see
recording.
from my window, but yeah, it's kind of snowing out there.
Yeah, I see
Yeah,
snow on top of cars.
yeah, it's crazy. Oh, jeez. I went for a walk today. That's kind of like one of the things that's keeping me balanced these days. Going for
Mhm.
walks and like. Sorry, that's my window closing. Yeah, and that's. It was cold, but it's fun, because it's like I think it's the first major snow of the season. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Oh, hey, welcome back to Yin and Yang, the podcast. This is James, and then I'm here with my co-host Dan, and we are joined by Nick Louie. Yay!
Yay!
Hey.
Today, so I asked. So actually, to our listeners, we were talking just about this. Nick was scheduled to be a guest earlier on, but his wife went into labor during that time, and then right now, for those who don't know, my wife is pregnant, and she may go to labor any time now. But for if we have to suddenly stop this podcast, or this podcast is only like 15 minutes long because of labor, then please understand. I'm gonna get another jacket because I'm cold. It's snowing in Japan. Ugh.
Did your OBGYN say like if there if the kid is like more than so many days, then we're gonna induce?
I don't recall. I think I don't know, but in my mind, I have this notion that it might be 2 weeks, a week or 2 weeks, after this due date, and they're gonna
Induce.
probably induce. But I might be misremembering.
That's a long time. Oh, well, I only say it's a long time because our first OBGYN said 2 days.
2 days. Okay.
2 days. And then I was like, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said it. My wife's like, no, that's not going to happen. And she found another OBGYN. She's like, not good, not cool.
Is she really against the
Well,
inducing
well,
part?
after 2 days seems a little extreme.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
I guess there's like that doctor has experienced a lot of issues with kids, early on in his career,
Mhm.
where if they don't come out within the 2 days of the due date, then it becomes an issue.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you guys hear that fan? Sorry, I'm being OCD about this, but can you guys hear the fan at all, or not really? No.
A little bit, I think.
A little bit. It's like it's kind of like one of those sound machines.
It's pretty
Okay.
consistent.
So
Yeah.
it's like if I needed to take it out, like if I left it in, it wouldn't be like terrible, I guess,
No,
right?
no.
Okay,
No.
good.
Oh, wait, you put on
The
several
low,
layers and then you turn on the fan also.
yeah, because it's
The
just
heater.
Oh, the heater. Okay, okay.
the heater. Because there's a louder. I'm putting on the lower version, the
Low
the
setting.
quiet
Yeah.
setting, but Yeah, because my feet are cold now. Yeah. Californians, we're not used to like snow and all
No,
this craziness.
Yeah,
especially since today it's like 70 something,
Oh, really?
yeah,
bordering on 80.
Oh, Jesus.
yeah. I don't mean to derail, but my wife and her family are from Michigan.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh,
so
wow.
every so often we'll go over to Michigan.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe the first time that I went during the winter time there, it was around, I was spending time in Michigan and then also went to the Chicago area just because they're kind of pretty close
Right.
together. And in Michigan it was around single digits Fahrenheit. And then in
Wow.
Chicago it was slightly negative digits Fahrenheit. And I thought that was the coldest I'd ever been. I just felt like, I would bundle up and I go outside and it felt like my face was just starting to
Oh,
freeze off.
jeez.
But I'm sure there's much colder than that. But I'm just, yeah, coming from California, it's tough for me to exist in the cold, in the real cold.
Yeah. Let's start there. Like, as far as you're from, so Nick, thanks for coming. Give us a little background about yourself. You're from California, from the San Francisco Bay Area. So,
Mm-hmm.
for our listeners, Nick and I know each other from our college days. We went to UC San Diego. We also acted together in the first Asian American theater show put on by Dan's wife, actually. So we're all connected, through UC San Diego in a way and through acting. And yeah, for our listeners and who want to get to know more about you, like what's kind of your background, where did you grow up, kind of like your education, and then kind of and then maybe leaning towards your professional life,
Mm-hmm.
and as working in, I guess, business a little bit on the business
Mm-hmm.
side, education as well, and then also acting. So yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area, like you said, James. I spent my whole life there and until college. So went down to San Diego, and that's where I met you. Spent about 8 years there, and then I moved back to the Bay Area, and I've been back in the Bay Area ever since. When I, well, shortly after I came back to the Bay Area, I decided to join a business school, and it was one of those things where I I would say with most of my time been trying to do projects with local theaters and that sort of thing in San Diego. And I felt like it's one of those funny things to me, at least, where I feel like for the amount of or the grueling type of work that one endures in, say, like I was working in retail back then, back in San Diego. I feel like for the amount of things that one needs to endure, one should be paid more for it, but it's not really how the world works.
Right.
Um, but so I
No.
came back to the Bay Area to try to, I kind of restarted myself in a sense. And yeah, I went to a business school and I started heading in the direction of finance and specifically not-for-profit finance. And so I was kind of in the arts and education space for a while. I ended up after a while joining a for-profit company just to kind of get that experience. The company went through an IPO. I was there for about almost 7 years. And then I just recently actually started with another company that does work in, it's actually the not nonprofit space again. And they do work in AI safety.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And then I would say during that time, even when I moved back to the Bay Area, I was still working on local theater projects, acting specifically. And I was I still do that. So even the last project I worked on was A Christmas Carol this last winter time. And I feel like I am in a very lucky position because my wife lets me do that, even though we have two young kids. They're ages
Right.
7 and 5 right now. And so I try to average about maybe one production a year these days,
Hmm.
just because. it's a lot of time to be away from them for rehearsals and the productions, and it's a lot of burden taken from me and put on her to just be solo with the kids for that amount of time. And so I'm lucky enough that she's okay with me doing something
Yeah.
like one production a year, up to, just because, it's not always up to me if I do a production or not.
Is she working full time too?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And are you
Yeah.
guys doing work from home, or are you guys doing a hybrid kind of situation, or?
Yeah, I had mostly been doing remote work, going to the office every so often, and my wife is also doing the remote work thing.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, she is, it's a constant topic of discussion between the two of us in terms of the working parent lifestyle, because she grew up in the Midwest. And so for her, she grew up around a lot of people who, some of her peers, specifically the females, they would be stay-at-home moms.
Oh, okay, okay.
And also in the Midwest, you kind of, right this moment, you can get a bit more bang for your buck in terms of cost of living. So like, purchasing a house is much more affordable there than it is, say, in the Bay Area.
Oh God,
And so
yeah.
it's constantly a discussion about the lifestyle in the Bay Area with the cost of living, having to have two working parents,
Wow.
taking care of young kids, all of that. And here I am trying to also do these theater projects on the side and just making it a little more difficult on
That
her.
that makes sense. I mean, sorry, I think I can turn it off now. Um,
Feet are
I'm
warm
warmed up.
enough.
I'm warmed up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's very from the people I've met in college. I think, yeah, you're one of the few that has consistently stayed with acting, even if it's like one project a year or something. I really admire and respect that. Other people have done other things, or built other families, which is great. It's that's amazing too. But I've always admired how you stuck with acting over this, what, 20 years now, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and I remember like you were taking classes, yeah, you even went to like community college, I believe, or something,
Yeah,
or
I've taken
like,
them, yeah,
yeah, so
colleges in different, yeah, settings. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
classes
yeah.
in different
So
settings. Yeah.
I've always respected that, and I always thought he Nick actually acted in one of my short films, City Lights. Yeah, and then he like he may came off as very humble and like shy in real life, but when he acts, it's very interesting because then sometimes he'll turn it on. Like I didn't give him an instruction, but he like kissed the our co-actor Christine, and I was just like, whoa! I didn't say to do that, but he went for it. I was just like, it worked. It worked for the scene at the time, and I don't know why. I don't know if you remember this, Nick, but like, yeah, I just like that's a very interesting choice because
No,
the story was basically that he didn't really want to go out that night with his girlfriend, his character, right? And the girlfriend wanted to go out with her boyfriend and have a good time, but he wasn't feeling it. And she's like, you know what, this guy's being such a jerk, and she walks off, and he chases after her. And I guess, yeah, anyways, yeah, sorry, yeah, that's the derail us again, but yeah, I don't know if you
no,
remember
no.
that, Nick. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember it. I don't remember myself being so bold as you remember. I
No,
felt like there
it
was
was a
a lot
bold move.
more permission about I don't, I mean, I don't really, my memory is hazy at this point, but I thought there might have been like conversation with me and
Oh,
Christine, the other person. Like, do you think, does it feel like, I don't know. I might be misremembering, but I
okay,
felt like
maybe I
there
wasn't.
was still a discussion about that. Does it feel appropriate here or whatever?
Oh, between the actors, yeah. I don't know if because maybe I was worried about like the filming of it, I guess, and you the actors. Okay, but
But
that
in
no,
your
that was
mind, did you feel like when you were, if you were playing the script in your mind before you did any, it was shot, did you just kind of have a very different take on what was happening?
uh my take was that yeah, I didn't have like the I think the physical part of it was him chasing her through. So this was filmed in San Francisco, Chinatown. I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to watch it. It's like old, so it's not. I don't think it's my best work, but it's fun short.
Me neither.
Yeah, and but I do feel like yeah, it's interesting because I thought for me I pictured that the character would physically walk and make sure that she's okay because it's night San Francisco Chinatown, and he wants to make sure his girlfriend's okay. As far as the kissing, I felt that when I wrote it, I felt like I didn't have it in mind, to be honest. I felt like more verbally that he would find some way to assure her that he still loves her. But I think what you did with the kiss really worked. After, when I went back and edited it, I felt like it really worked because then that kind of the kiss basically supplants the lines I could have used. Basically, like he doesn't need to say so much; he can show it with his actions. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. So Nick, I commend you for continuing to do acting, and I think yeah, this is something I wanted to talk about. Also, was how you balance the kind of like the hobbies. I suffer from this too personally, and this was even before my kid is not born yet, but even just being in a relationship, my wife would told me before I had too many hobbies. I don't know. You guys might have heard this conversation before, but like from your wives. But yeah, I just felt like I was at the time. So I'm in Japan. I live in Japan. I've been living in Japan for almost. It's going to be 5 years this year. And when I first met my wife, we were just boyfriend and girlfriend. We met in Taiwan, and then we came. Then I came here for the JET program, the Japanese Exchange and Teaching Program, English Teaching Program, and we did like a little bit long distance. I was in Kansai area, and she was in Tokyo area, and eventually she moved in with me, and we had to say like on paper that we were going to get engaged, even though at the time we had only been dating for about half a year or something at that point. But we felt really good about like, you know what, let's say for now we're engaged, but it might be true later. Like it's probably true now, but let's just allegedly. So if the team is listening, but I think yeah, at the time I think we were pretty sure that we're gonna get married eventually. So we wrote the letter to our facilitator who lets us live in the I guess the housing for teachers, and so long story short, what was I going? Okay, so yeah, so. And at the time, I was doing before she moved in with me. I was doing like judo and jiu-jitsu class. I was taking guitar lessons, and I was teaching at a school. I was teaching English at a high school, and then also once a week I would teach at a special education school. And yeah, and I remember one time we just had this conversation. She's like, James, like you have like no time for me. And it was a tough conversation, but it was a conversation I needed to grow up, I think, because I was still kind of trying to, because I went back for graduate school when I was 30, and I kind of went back into, I don't know, I kind of reverted a little bit. I reverted back to college days where I was just trying to do a bunch of stuff. And also at the time of, I was also trying to sleep with a bunch of women, and this kind of this headspace of trying to try everything and do everything. I still carry that with me even to this day, and it's something I've had to focus. I don't know. Have you guys ever? So yeah, I know Nick, you kind of come across as Dan. I don't know. You don't come across. You seem very focused. You're more single focused, though you have like surfing and kung fu, but you seem like you're better with time management. I don't know.
Nick, do you want to like respond first?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just listening to that, I feel like I resonate in a lot of ways. I kind of feel like the balance thing is a little bit like you're balancing with the people closest to you. You're sort of like navigating that together or negotiating that together. So with whoever your partner or even your kids. Um, but yeah, I'd say that for me, my wife, one of the first things that we play these little conversation games when you start off, and we were just describing ourselves to each other, and like what are the 3 words you'd use to describe yourself?
Oh,
little
okay,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And then one of the words she used to describe herself was independent. And so I think, yeah, there are times when I find myself being able to just spend most of the evening doing something like reading or something like that. And at the same time, trying to balance that because I know she like any person in a relationship to some degree, I think that there might be quality time or some level of connection that requires just being focused on the other person from whatever form that turns out to be. So I don't know, me thinking about that all that together. Yeah, it's difficult, and every couple is going to have their own style of balancing time, activities, independent time. And so yeah, I definitely think it's an issue. I think one of the things that I'm constantly talking to my wife about is kind of like the whys of what I'm doing.
Hmm.
What this sort of what I feel like this activity or that activity is like the purpose of it in general. And I think um and I think I'm lucky in the sense that I get to find ways that we can connect in new ways, if that makes sense. Being able to just focus on each other and be able that have sort of its own meaning emerge in the sense. I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm kind of rambling. Um,
No, I get it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, I probably before this I was thinking that I'd my my personal goal would be to be the most incomprehensible guest in your podcast. But
Right,
anyway,
right. You should. Yeah, the backwards law, right? Like you
yeah.
try for the worst, and then no, no, that's great. Dan, I guess for you, your kids are older, right?
Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah.
11, 13, so they're at this point. But as far as like personal time is concerned, I think it's probably like similar to what Nick is talking about. You just work out a balance or work out some sort of arrangement, if you will, or
Mm,
understanding. Um, that's great that you recognize the hard work that your wife goes through when you go through a production, right?
mm,
Because especially during tech week, you can't come back in time to like tuck them in or pick them up from school because you're basically locked in a room or locked in a theater with your cast and production crew. So, I'm on the opposite side of that. My wife is actually at tech now. So,
oh.
yeah, I'm in charge of like sh ferrying my kids everywhere, chauffeuring them. So,
Hmm.
whatever activities they're into, I have to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's commendable for your wife because we both know your wife. And she's continuing to work in theater, although it not in the acting side, but more the directing side now.
Yeah.
And like, how are those conversations with like, hey, I'm going into a production, so this is what the schedule looks like. Dan, I'll need your support. Is that kind of is there a
No.
discussion or is it just an
No.
understanding or?
Just it's more like I'm gonna be gone these weeks kind of thing. But
Oh,
this time around she's actually acting. She's in a play.
oh,
So
great.
yeah.
Okay.
Something that she wanted to do. But yeah, usually it's like, oh, she'll ask me, she was like, hey, this theater asked me if I want to direct. It's gonna be these months. And for me, I was like, that's fine. Because for me, doing what I do, it's not my passion. But for her, acting and directing and being in the arts is her passion, right?
Okay.
So if she wants to pursue her passion and she can get paid for it, great. I'm not going to say no to that. But,
Hmm.
on the flip side, I don't have that. I'm not doing the thing that I'm passionate about, which I shouldn't say, you know, God forbid someone like, but I don't think anyone from my company will actually watch this or re listen to it. But um, yeah, and I think that a lot of them are like that though. I've talked to a lot of people who are like, it's a good paycheck,
It's a good
golden
paycheck.
handcuffs. Yeah. But as
Hmm.
far as like the balance is concerned, for me, I'm just okay with like figuring it all out because again, they're my kids, right? I I don't know if I would be a good step parent. I don't know if I would be as patient if I had to deal with the same sort of schedule if it was my kid. But maybe I'd feel differently because after so many years, they become your kid. But initially, in my mind, my kids, you know, my responsibility. So I got to make
Hmm.
sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
I had a thought also was, you know, part of me thinks that some of the balancing, someone's about to have a kid with their partner. I feel like some of the balancing kind of gets set into place, at least from my perspective, way back when you're actually first starting to date and get to know each other. It's
Mm,
sort of
Hmm.
that conversation that you have about each other's habits, how they go about life, their perspective on things, their values. And I think it's kind of funny because I don't know that anyone goes into a marriage, no matter how long they've been together, really completely knowing the other person or having all that completely ironed out before,
Hmm.
you know, making that actual final agreement to be married. But it's a lot of those things I feel like comes up eventually, just, how you how you nurture kids, how you praise them, how you discipline if you do discipline. Also like what you each value in life, what you strive for, what you're anxious about, and all that kind of starts to get set in place. I think when you first start dating, and ideally everyone can come to a spot when they finally decide, if they decide to stay together, that they've worked enough out where they feel confident enough, or maybe it's just sometimes a little bit of luck too, that these these patterns or habits that I have are okay with her and vice versa. But
Hmm.
some of that, I think, just it starts from the very beginning of the relationship too, just in terms of trying to understand the other person, know that this is important to them, or know that this thing is important to me and it really puts a strain on her, but we'll find a way through it. So
Hmm.
yeah, to me that's it's a little bit of negotiation from day one.
Right. It's kind of like feeling, I guess, finding out where the core values are at. If you value systems are similar, I guess. So, Nick, how long were I guess you and your wife, dating before you decided on marriage? And then the
Yeah,
same for you, Dan. Yeah.
for us it was actually pretty quick. It was about a year. We were together about a year before we got married.
Yeah. Same here.
um we did do a little bit of premarital counseling before we
Oh,
got married.
interesting.
oh,
Okay.
that's
um
cool.
yeah, no, a lot of it ended up being the, those personality types, like this person is really open to change, this person is not very open to change, those
Like
sort
the
of like,
Meyer Briggs, I guess,
yeah,
or
there's that,
yeah.
there's other ones, but some of it ended up being that. I think it was worthwhile, it was great. um I think it's funny though, because I I've talked to some other couples and families, and it's it's so interesting how just things come up with life. For example, I think kids a very big thing to
Right.
happen in one's life. And I just recall one conversation where the couple just had a disagreement about how to approach like troubles at the kids' preschool, and it caused a lot of heated discussions. And it's one of those things where I don't know that anyone would really have a lot of foresight to know, like, oh, what do you think your approach is going to be when your kid hypothetically has this sort of issue at school, and then one person would be really on this side, one person's really on that side. And so yeah, I mean, it's great to do these things, premarital counseling or talking table topics or whatever, just to really get to know the other person. But at some point, and I think maybe this bears out in the sense that just so many marriages, um, end up getting divorced, after so many years. It's there's a lot of things that go into a relationship, and so even though you can be together for a long time beforehand, there's just so much uncertainty, and I think you work to reduce that uncertainty in a lot of cases. But it sometimes it's a little bit of luck, and sometimes it's being able to actively work on issues together, or just a whole host of other things that people might suggest for having a
Did you guys live together before marriage or no?
um we didn't officially live together. We did a sort of like, like I'd stay for periods of time at her place or she'd at my place, those sort of
Hmm.
things. But we didn't do a whole we're moving in with each other beforehand.
Hmm. Yeah, because I hear mixed things about that. Some people say, "Oh, you should live together to find out some stuff," and some people are like, "No, save that for marriage." So I was just
Mhm.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've heard the same thing from other people. I've heard that there's a higher likelihood that a couple will split up if they um, live together before marriage.
Right.
But I wonder if that is actually uh, by design. I don't know if by design is the right word, but just in the sense that maybe it kind of helps prove out if both decide not to necessarily want to stay together just because their living habits, or they come quicker to that realization that maybe that they're not as compatible with their styles of life.
Hmm. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, we started dating and then we got married within a year and a half of
Hmm.
starting to date. Um, my wife. It's kind of hard to say because it's like you guys both know her, but she's fond of saying or telling people that I just kind of moved myself into her place, which is true. And I just never left. As far as like the idea, I think of a higher likelihood of people splitting up if they move in together first. I think once you get married, right, it's a commitment. And if you don't like live together and you don't know each other's habits, but then you marry and then you're like, we've already committed to this. We made this promise and you
Right.
just have to work through it. Whereas like if you were to live together before the marriage, there's not that commitment yet. So if there
Hmm.
are any like sort of idiosyncrasies that nothing completely gels, you don't have to stay. You can just, maybe
Okay.
somebody like one too many times, you're like, yeah, I'm out.
Because you've
So
done everything except the commitment part.
yeah.
Like, got it, got
And
it.
and so there's like no the marriage part is the commitment part. So, you're always free to leave if you live together and you find like, oh, you know what? I just don't want to deal with it. And you just like leave. But once you get married, you kind of like figure out, oh, we have to work through these issues, possibly.
So,
Just a
so,
theory.
so you moved in and then got married.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did that. But, obviously we moved pretty fast because it was later in my life. And um yeah. And then within the year of us getting married, she got pregnant. So
Mm,
within like a few months.
wow.
Yeah.
And here I did a IVF, so it took me a year and a half.
Uh,
Wow. So you guys were okay. Smooth sailing. Yeah, yeah. I
Something similar that, or along those same lines, I have heard somewhere about how a lot of culture, our culture in our country is for regarding couples is about what they think about love and that being something that brings people together. Whereas many years ago, that wasn't necessarily so much about love. It might be com- uh, how
convenience.
compatibility of the
Yeah.
states, or how successful this couple could be in raising a family together, or just other things. And I think probably a number of theories why, but maybe one would be that there's something kind of bigger than the just the couple themselves that is a part of bringing them together to stay together.
Hmm.
And it could be this the commitment, it's that this vow or whatever, but it could also be just, you know, society, like this is the estate, we're running this estate together, or it could be that the families that the of the two couples being joined in some way is also productive or constructive, and we want to keep that sort of bond going.
Right.
But yeah.
It's it still happens. I mean, the royal
Hmm.
couples are like that. If they're like the head of state. But I think I have an Indian friend, and they still view those things, right?
Hmm.
They look and see whether or not you're of the social status, your job is good, you can provide for the family, and then they like it's I wouldn't say it's like a dating profile, but it kind of is. You have to have like
Right.
like a background of like, oh, you're not a bum before the girl's like, okay, yeah, I'll talk to you kind of thing. So
That makes sense though. Like,
yeah,
I mean, you've heard
couple
stories of like,
stages.
yeah, there's like some, oh, I'm married for love, but then there's a lot of financial issues that come on,
Yeah.
and then the relationship doesn't weather the storm. So, uh, yeah, for my situation, I was, yeah, pretty lucky. I met my wife, and within a year or so, we got married. And before, it's interesting. Beforehand, yeah, I guess in my life I went through certain stages of like I thought like, oh, a marriage is like this huge commitment. You need to spend years and years together before you get to know. And then but then I realized no, when you click, it's fairly it's you kind of just know that this is the person I want to marry. I don't know if you guys felt that, but it's like, you know what? I think we've worked out some within that year of dating. I was like, I get the gist of this person, like as far as the value system, and then yeah, just let's go for it. And one thing that going to the topic of this conversation, that I talked with my wife when we were dating was like, okay, do you want to have kids, right? And she said, yeah, I do. And I was just curious, like, okay, what's your why? Going back to Nick's language of like, what's your why? Why do you want to have kids? And she's like, you just that's just I don't know. It's just I've in she said it in like the Japanese term hono, like benung, which is like just I have this nature of wanting to have kids. And I was like, I like that. It's just simple. She just has that. And for me, if you asked me too, I'd probably give a similar answer. Yeah, because before my water's boiling here. Before, as I mentioned before that, before getting into a committed relationship, and before I was dating my wife, I was, yeah, unfortunately, kind of embarrassed to say, but I was trying to like, sleep with women and try to have like the, I don't know, get, live life to the fullest, whatever that meant for me at the time. But I think for what getting with my wife really focused my energy, and now with this kid coming, I have to focus that energy even more, if that makes sense, right? Because I sometimes feel like I spread myself out, as far as my attention. Maybe I'm undiagnosed ADHD or whatever, possibly, but I feel like I spread my attention and I sometimes lose focus of what's important, which is spending time with my wife and being with her. And I try to always remind myself of like, hey, what are my priorities? And I have to come back to like, okay, we want to have this kid. And what's interesting through the IVF process, which is a in vitro fertilization, which is a process that we went through, is that we already kind of fell in love with our kid before our kid was born, if that makes sense, because we're already planning and we want to do this, and we went through all this, spent all this money. Not as much as America; it's cheaper in Japan. But we spent all this money. It's still money, right? And we spent all this time to create life, right? And so I don't know. It's just a beautiful thing, and that's I wonder for you guys, like that conversation of do you want to have kids, was that something that, did you guys even have that conversation, or is just something natural that came about? What was that conversation like for you guys? Yeah.
Nick?
Yeah, we did have that conversation. I think I recall also having that conversation before getting married, and I think I was a little bit more on the fence actually from
Oh, interesting.
what I expressed. Like, yeah, I could have a kid. I think luckily it didn't it didn't cause major issues up through now, but probably something to get super on the same page about.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, we and then we had conversations after getting married, and it's one of those things where I mean, it's huge time commitment to have kids, and I, I was still like you, James. I was doing a lot of things, um, still working on plays. I liked playing video games. I liked um, hanging out with friends and things like that. Things that
I'm still playing
some people
Fallout,
do.
by the way. Whenever I have time, I try to play Fallout 4. I still haven't finished that game. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Um, and so yeah, I mean, it can be a tough. I mean, depending on who you are, it could be tough to make that transition from having time for certain things like that to a place where a lot of that time, most of that time maybe, gets taken away to be given to a focus on a kid and raising a kid. And so we would talk about like, oh, is it, just one kid? Because I had friends that said, oh, if you have one kid, it gives you a lot more freedom to have time to do activities that you want to do on your own. But at the same time, if you have multiple kids, maybe they're close in age or can at least get along well together. Maybe they'll play together as well, and that's its own benefit. Probably lots of other benefits that I'm not mentioning, but yeah, yeah, kind of a lot of discussion actually around that overall. But what we settled on was my wife. She grew up with a sibling close in age, and so for us having two kids close in age, both girls, that that was the ideal for my wife growing up. And
Hmm.
so we went along with that. And I mean, I'm pretty happy with the results so far.
So far.
Can always change.
Yes, things could always change. Yeah, my wife told me that we had that conversation, but my wife said that if I said I didn't want to have kids, it would have been the end of it.
Hmm.
I've always been, I always liked kids, but I wasn't sure. I once dated a girl and it's like, she goes, "Do you want kids?" I go, "It's a game time decision." She goes, "What does that mean?" I was like, "Well, it depends. If the girl doesn't seem like she'll be a good mom or whatever, whatever reason, right? I might not want to have kids."
Ah.
So it could be financial, it could be so many different things. And she goes, "Why would you be with someone that if you're not sure about having kids with?" I was like, "Well, I might really like that girl or love that girl, but maybe I can recognize that she doesn't have the capacity to have kids, right?" As like as far as um that nurturing nature,
Hmm.
if they're not willing to sacrifice and et cetera, right?
Right. Right.
Because I stopped playing video games as soon as I had kids. I didn't surf for like a year or two, once I had my first kid.
Hmm.
So, and then just like Nick, my kids are 2 years apart. So, I think I just started not feeling guilty about surfing once they turned like 2 or 3.
Hmm.
That first year is for any young infant, you're watching them. First 3 months, especially, the wife is doing a lot. So you have to help out any way you can. You change them, you feed them if they have formula or if you have breast milk on hand. But yeah, I definitely gave up gaming. I
Hmm.
still haven't picked it up. I tell my kids like they play Switch. They go, why don't you play with us? I was like, look, if I start gaming, then it's not going to stop.
It's
So
it's so addictive, video games. Yeah, yeah. No,
yeah. Whereas like
yeah,
surfing, I can only do so much of it. I go out, if there's waves, great, I catch some, do that for a couple hours on Sunday morning, but I'm back by like 10 or 11. So there's
yeah,
still a whole day that I can spend with them. And then Kung Fu, I drag my older son to go with me these days.
uh-huh,
I wanted to make sure he's okay with it. My younger son,
yeah.
he has basketball, so yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Uh,
I kind of resonate actually with I mean I might get pushback on this, but like the game time decision sort of
Yeah.
talk. Um I kind of feel like, especially having gone through the pregnancy, or I mean not personally, but like, with my wife, she going through her going through the pregnancy to the delivery. There's a lot of stuff there that happens, or and points in time that decisions can be made, and I think it's with like a lot of things. You think about kids, no kids, and then I think there's often a certain picture in mind of like, oh, this when I have a kid, I have this one that I saw in like Life magazine in the ad or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But there's like these days there's like the 20-week ultrasound. It's like, does this kid have a high chance of having Down syndrome or not?
Right,
And it's like,
right.
what do are you
oh,
is that something that you feel like you can manage in your life? Just tons of things like that, and with like the genetic testing and other things too. But there's a lot of nuance there that I think um, emerges going through it, and for a lot of people, they decide that no, that's not they're not signing up for that sort of thing, and then some people do. But
Right.
like lots of things like that come up along the process that we might not envision going into it in the first place.
Yeah.
for your for your timeline, I'm curious. Like, what was your time like from like marriage to pregnancy? So for Dan, it was fairly quick, like within a year, right? Yeah. So
So
yeah.
quick.
Nick, what was kind of like your timeline to from like did you guys decide first we want to get established in our careers first, or like what did you guys plan for the birth? Yeah, I'm curious about the kind of the timeline of it.
Yeah, I think we did get to a place where we thought we would start trying probably a few months after we got married.
Yeah. Okay.
I think one thing that we were before we had really started trying to have kids, there was a friend of mine, and it was words that I still think about every now and then, but they were telling me about the idea of, or thinking about, having kids. The phrase being, there's never it's never the right time to have
Mm,
kids. There's always like something out there that's like, oh, can my career be more established? Could I be more have my stuff together? Should I know more about what it is to be a parent or nurture or raise or that sort of thing? But anyway, it's an interesting thing. There's certain I guess there's a lot of things in life where you kind of maybe never ready for certain things that you get into in life. But yeah, we started a few months after I think we got married, um, and yeah, we just kind of started trying at that point. Um, and I think yeah, I don't know that there's for us, it I guess we were, like everyone else, just kind of learning along the way about things such as what's the most ideal time in the cycle to
oh,
try things like that.
timed pregnancy or timed, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like when someone's most fertile, things like that. I don't think we thought that much about a lot of other factors, like when would the kid be born if we try that this time or that time. But it was, some aspects, not others.
Okay. And then what did pregnancy come fairly soon after you started doing like the decide on trying for a kid?
Yeah, we I mean, I think it might have taken a few months. I mean, that's another thing that I feel like learn about, like just the dynamics that goes into getting pregnant in the first place. Just, sometimes it takes really well, sometimes it doesn't, and it could be for
Mm,
various reasons. And yeah, I think for us we were lucky just because I do know many people out there who it's a bit of a struggle for one reason or the other, and for some, like, just it just never happens, just for various
right.
reasons. But yeah, I think we were lucky in the fact that it seemed to take fairly quickly, relatively quickly, I guess.
And then is your wife close in age to you, or
Yeah,
younger,
yeah,
or
yeah,
older?
yeah. We were
Okay,
both born the same year.
okay,
Oh,
okay. And your first kid is 7.
Yeah, 7 years
Okay,
old.
so 7 years ago. Okay, okay. Right, because I know there's that clock, right? There's a ticking clock, and I talked to my wife about this, and she wanted to start before I felt like I was ready. Actually, I was like, I don't know, yeah, maybe we don't have to rush it. I was kind of like that, and then she told me like, James, we can start trying, but you never know how long it's gonna take. And she was right. I was wrong. She's like, because it took us a year and a half. I was like, maybe in a year, maybe 2 years, I'll be ready. And guess what? It fit my timeline from the time we started trying. For various reasons, I had to go through surgery for varicocele, which is a puddling of blood in my TMI, but puddling of blood that leaks into the testes. So I got a varicocele surgery, and then she was also taking certain IVF related drugs to help with the ovulation. So eventually it worked out, but then we still used the injection method. They put the sperm into the egg, and I guess supposedly you can actually see it in the X-ray, like my wife said, yeah, I think I saw like a little. I was like, wait, can you really see it? But she says she kind of saw it go boom inside. Anyways, yeah, you're right. I think the timing part is difficult. You never know how long it's gonna take, and there's never a perfect time. I guess that's yeah. There's never a perfect time. So as far as the actual, so this is where I'm at. So we're in our 30. Was it tomorrow? Will be our 38, starting the 38th week. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but as far as me as a father, being a soon to be father, what kind of advice would you two, I guess, say about going into the actual birthing, the labor process? Like, because that's kind of I'm kind of anxious right now because it's like any day now, right? And then I don't know how much I myself can really prepare. I've I went through the was it I guess the new the father book. There's like a book I went through on Audible, and I'm reading a book now called The Birth Partner, which is like okay. And so I'm curious about your guys' advice going into the birth process specifically. Yeah.
um I think my perspective is that um I'd say the those moments leading up to and then going through the birth, um I feel like I got a lot of hand holding from the
Oh.
hospital. Like the nurses, they kind of just, I felt also like, I don't know if if like this sort of thing happens, what do I do? But it's really, there's a lot of people there. And well, I guess you're in Japan. I don't know if it might be different, but anyway, where we were,
Mm.
um, yeah, it's just there's a bunch of nurses there, and there's like, oh, stand here right now, like okay, and then they tell us like this is what's going to happen, and then they'll take some tests, and then they say, okay, you're this far along, this is what's going to happen next. The person will see, and then they just basically tell me what to do, and then they take me through the whole process. Same with my wife, and so for me, it was very, I could just I just listened to the instructions, the game time instructions, and just go with that. And it was perfectly fine for me. But yeah, that was my take on the whole process. It's very they really do a great job of steering you in the moment to all the things that are necessary.
Did you do any prep beforehand? Did you guys have a birth plan or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we went through like I don't know, many hour sort of class online
Uh,
about just take a tour of the hospital. These are the part, and then they'll take you through. These are the parts of development for the kid in the womb. This is what to expect. This during the delivery. These are the people who will be helping you. This is the things that will happen like immediately after. So yeah, it did all of that. And yeah, no, I thought it was. I mean, in some cases, in some ways, it's a little bit of peace of mind. Like, okay, I'm not totally clueless, but yeah, in a lot of ways, I think one thing that I recall thinking throughout the process, through the birth, and even like after the first few months, was I feel like humans, are amazingly adaptable to the process of a new kid because there's a lot of changes,
hmm.
a lot of, and then like the sleep deprivation, all of that,
Yeah.
big changes in the life. But I think people by and large get through it, and so it's amazing how a person can really rise up to the occasion.
Okay. So I guess you just adapted with the in game, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
learning on the job, kind
For the
of, right?
specifically for the delivery.
Right.
But yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Dan, did you want to add anything? Or, yeah.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. We had a doula for both our kids,
Oh,
so she pretty much guided us. But the thing I will tell you, if you are you're going to be there for a while, I think. First, especially the first kid. The second kid came out really quick, but the first kid took a while,
oh,
and
interesting.
you're going to be hungry. So I say bring some snacks, eat before. I wouldn't
Mm,
want to eat before in front of your wife though,
yeah.
because she's not allowed to eat. At
Uh,
least in America, they were not allowed to eat other than ice chips. And for our first kid, we went right before dinner. So I was hungry and starving for like 12 hours or
oh,
11
wow.
hours or whatever it was. And then when he finally came, it was 6 in the morning and I was starving. And
Oh,
when we got into our room, I was like, I need breakfast. So, and then our
wow.
other kid came right before lunch, where the labor started right before lunch. So but he came out fast. So
Okay,
I wasn't like famished,
got it.
and then
Okay,
I,
bring
I will
snacks.
tell
Got it.
you, I will tell you, my friend told me this. He goes, the first few days, maybe a week, your wife is going to be very hormonal and she might want to kill you still. She might
Oh,
flip out and get angry or whatever.
yeah,
You just gotta like weather that storm.
right. Because yeah, it's like one of the most. It's like getting hit by a car or something. That's what I heard before. It's like that. It's one of the most traumatic physical and emotional experiences a woman can experience is
I don't
giving
know.
birth.
Nick,
Yeah.
Nick was your wife. My wife, I can tell you, we had an incident like the first night we brought the kid home. So
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
Nick,
Uh,
was your wife emotional?
yeah. I think for us though, it was she does not do well with sleep deprivation.
Hmm.
And so
Ah.
she already doesn't get great sleep at night. So it's there's a little bit of I don't know what you call it, but just emotional toil, like
Yeah,
Hmm.
extreme emotional toil that went into that aspect for us,
yeah,
just the sleep deprivation. So um yeah, I guess it manifests itself in another way for us, and like a little bit of like maybe feelings of despair, things like
right,
that. But it's
Hmm.
it's a little bit that was how it manifests for us in terms of specifically the sleep.
right.
So then, yeah, because I that's one thing my wife and I discuss is that she does terrible with she needs her 8 hours. She's always been like even even when kids were going to like the JUCO, the after school programs in
Yeah.
Japan, she was like, I want to go sleep. Like that's why I respect. She prioritized sleep in her life, which is great because it's one of the best things you can do for your body and your mind, right? And she told me, James, like, please forgive me, but like if we during sleep deprivation, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be really really cranky because she does not even now because she's pregnant, she has to use the restroom a lot during the night,
Yeah.
and like it's sometimes the mornings are tough for her, and I'm I'll make breakfast, I'm very understanding, but like I'm already seeing glimpses of that, so I'm curious, like, yeah, do you guys have a feeding schedule once the kid is born? Like how do you guys manage to get some sleep actually, or just like throw that out the window, like there's, yeah, sleep when you can, or yeah, I'm curious about what tactics you guys had
Nick, did you
Uh,
have any?
for
yeah,
the
I
like,
mean the first bit, like the first, I don't remember exactly, but like the first month or so, it's like every few hours, the kid's
Yeah.
gonna wake up and need a feeding. And so some of it depends on, your James, you and your wife's choice in terms of like breastfeeding, no breastfeeding,
mm,
pumping, no pump, just or formula, just all kind of like that decision matrix.
right,
Um, just because like if you insist on breastfeeding like actual to the milk to the as it's coming out, then it's
right,
like you're kind of signing up for the your wife being awake every 3 hours, maybe a
uh
little bit shorter or longer, but for that first long stretch of time, which feels like a long stretch of time to me at least.
yeah,
But yeah, no, we ended up going to formula pretty quickly. Like there's this time after right after the kid's born when they at least, I mean, I guess there's lots of different opinions about um, breast milk and formula, and then you know some would say that the right after the kid's born, most important time to have like the breast milk, even if you were to decide to go to formula. But yeah, we ended up going the formula route eventually, and um, after the a period of time, we got to sort of like a 6 hour sort of schedule
okay,
where someone would sleep for 6 hours in the night and the other person would be up with the kid and then would flip. Um, and we also, I mean, part of I think during this time a little bit of the feelings of despair around like the sleep and how I was taking a toll. It was hard to get through it. For me, I started reading a bunch of sleep training books at the same time, just how to get a kid on a regular sleep schedule, which wouldn't
okay,
happen for months later. But um, one of the books we read that I thought was useful was something like, I think it's called 12 Hours by 12 Weeks. We didn't follow it to a T. It's a really short book, I think, like maybe around 150 pages or so, but it felt a little bit empowering just because like when you feel a little bit helpless, I think if you can gain a little measure of control about something that you're feeling quite distressed about and helpless about, it can help to, in your mind at least, have a little bit of a plan. Like you're
mm,
taking a little measure of control over the situation. So we started like following some advice about feeding schedules um and how much to feed, just to sort of gear the kid up for being able to um adapt to a more regular sleep schedule.
okay, got it, yeah, I'll look
Yeah,
it
pretty
up.
early on we started doing that. Just, I mean, like not like trying to get them to sleep for throughout the night, but like just early on trying to get those that momentum going towards that direction of where eventually we'd start to try to get the kids sleeping on
Got it,
a schedule that helps the parents to some degree.
right. Dan, what did you guys do?
We just toughed it through because my wife was adamant about breast milk, and that's her decision, right? I can't make a decision on that.
Right,
If
okay,
she's willing to do it, then I have to support her as best I can. We didn't do sleep training at all. Wife was a little bit granola crunchy in that way. So
Okay.
most of my friends, almost all my friends did sleep training, but we didn't do it. Yeah,
Did
for
you notice
either
any
kid.
issue, sleep issues because of that, or you can't really compare because you never really did the sleep training? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't compare.
Yeah.
There's no way. I'm curious to see if Japan does that or not.
Yeah. I no, I don't know. I
Have you
never
ever
heard.
talked to your wife about that?
No, not really. Like this is probably one of the. I heard about it maybe a little bit when my brother had his first kid a few years back. I was like sleep training, huh? Interesting. And then no, it hasn't come back on my radar until like Nick just mentioned it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll ask my
I
wife
mean,
about it. Yeah,
you should ask
yeah,
because
yeah.
maybe it's a cultural thing. I
Yeah.
think in America, sleep training is a huge thing where,
Oh,
a lot of my friends did the cry out method. They just let them cry it out. And
huh.
then we didn't do that. We basically slept with our kid for a while. We co-slept.
Yeah, that's what they do in Japan. My wife's Japanese, and yeah, she's pretty adamant of having. So the I guess in Japan the culture is the first week the wife goes back to her family home, and
Mm.
the her family and her take care of the child, and I go visit for the
Yeah.
first. Well, actually, it's supposed to be like some people do it for a month, but my wife says like it's gonna be hard for her to stay that long there, so she we just decided on a week. Yeah. So there's that, which I found interesting. For you guys, like for that first after delivery, like did you guys take a month off? Did you guys take 2 weeks off? I know Nick, you mentioned early on a little bit about trying to get work done before the pregnancy. So yeah, I'm curious about because I work from home, so luckily I have a pretty flexible schedule. And when I first told my manager, like, okay, I'm thinking about 1 month, they were like, a month, like they're like surprised. I was just like, wait, isn't that normal? Like a month or so? Because like the wife, like I had a coworker, but she was, she's female. She took like 3 months off. I was like, so can a guy get like a month or I don't know. I guess yeah. My company is like they're mostly Chinese people, so I don't know if they think the man should take off that much time off because it's pretty brutal work culture in China as well. I don't know. Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on like time off and how to navigate that with work and a new kid?
Yeah. I think it's an interesting topic. Um, I think a month totally reasonable.
Right.
Like our parents, like my parents, probably took like maybe a day or two. It's
Yeah.
like
What? Yeah, probably
it's
my parents too. Yeah.
it's an interesting dynamic. You know, my personal take on the whole thing is like kids, especially the early child rearing. I think I feel a little bit actually surprised how hard society makes it on people having kids. Um, what I mean by that is, to me, I think there's an expectation that we're gonna go have a kid. Me and the wife, we go away for to the hospital or whatever. We do the delivery. We get this kid all set to go in at night and during the day. We come back to work, we're fresh and we can do 8 hours. We go back, we just do, it's like there's this perception. I think there's a lot of misperceptions about raising a kid in the early days.
Hmm.
And I mean, from what I can tell, like earlier humans, it was more tribal in raising a kid.
Yeah.
There would be people around to help. It wasn't necessarily the whole just the burden just solely on the parents to like have this sleep deprivation and like wake up every 3 hours or whatever. But it's like our
Uh,
society today is based around this like expectation or this this ideal of like, oh, the 8 hour workday or whatever it might be. And same thing with like being sick. And then like also, leading up to the delivery, like the like nausea that the woman might have.
yeah.
Like I mean, I just see people like really not talk about it. Like this it's a real thing that the woman is going through, and it's making it life kind of really distressing if they have to work and then like try to like hide, just like keep in like the feelings of the body that are really unpleasant.
Hmm.
But it's like the expectation that they're just like, oh yeah, like it's it's not it, people just get through it. But I think like all this stuff, like the going through the burdens of up through the pregnancy, and then also um just sort of managing raising a kid just in the background, but still like coming back to work, and for the just that first month and then thereafter, I feel like there's a bit of I don't know, it just it feels a little bit like we're making like society just makes it hard on the people who are trying to have kids.
Right, like, and people wonder why the birth rate is so low, right? But like, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of reasons, especially Japan, and I learned recently, like Korea is even worse. Taiwan even has a lower birth rate, and I think part of that is like, yeah, is work culture, and also, also other factors like the wages haven't risen in so many years, and all that. But no, I think that's a good point, Nick. As far as sometimes I wonder, it's like, dang, how do people do this? Like how do people have kids, balance work, and then maybe, just maybe, they want to pursue their passion? Like, yeah. I mean, Dan, what are your thoughts?
Wait. How much time did you take, Nick?
I took For our first kid, I took 2 weeks. I think I had 4 weeks total. I think it took 2 weeks right after the kid was born. And then I
Okay.
think my wife took something like, I don't remember exactly. It might have been 3 months, so between somewhere between 3 and 6 months.
Oh
I should
wow.
I should remember, but I don't. And then like after she was done, I took another 2 weeks. So I was there, we decided to just be there together for the first couple weeks. And then um the intention after that was to kind of prolong the amount of time that one of us could stay with the kid, just sort of um, full time.
Were you working remotely at that time, hybrid, or what were you doing at the time?
This was before
COVID.
COVID-19. It was for our first kid. So actually, I was going into the office every day, and
Oh,
so yeah, after 2 weeks, I went uh, back into the office, um, yeah, every day, and uh, I know that some people, they all sorts of personalities and preferences. Um, I'm not a very I'm not a baby person. I found out I don't like those first the first moments of the kid and who they are at that point. Um, so I thought of it as like, even though there's time off of work, I thought it was like one of the least enjoyable times off, trying to get the kid whatever they needed and being so sleep deprived during this first few months or so.
got it.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks
I
was right for you, is what kind of what you're saying, I guess, or like versus a month or so. Yeah.
I mean, everyone I've seen so many different um takes on it. Like some people just take
Right.
the whole chunk up front. Some people take almost, or some people, if they're the father, they may take very little time and then just like tack it onto the back. I've seen so many different iterations of it.
Got it.
Yeah, I took my company at the time for both kids allowed 12 weeks, and I took all
Wow.
12 weeks.
For the
Um,
for the for the man, for the dad.
yeah, just paternity
Wow.
leave and maternity leave, parental leave. So I didn't realize this. One of my friends, he said he did what Nick was suggesting. He did like 1 month upfront and then another 2 months later on. So I think society, US society, um, Asians are very guilty of like demanding work. Whereas
Hmm.
I hear that European countries, there are a couple of European countries that will give a 1 year paternity leave or parental leave for both
Wow.
father and mother.
Jesus, 1 year. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about a better work-life balance out there, right? And social health care and all these things that we don't have in America. Even though Asia has social health care, they, I don't know, the social network in the social safety net, I think. I'm not sure about Japan or even any of the Asian countries, but I I can't foresee like the social safety net is as good as in Western Europe. So
It's like even if I don't have a job, I'll have health insurance, but I still have to pay into it like a minimum, which is like maybe like $50 or something a month or something. Like I still have to pay a minimum fee
yeah,
to get the basic level health insurance, but it's still gonna be pretty dang cheap.
yeah,
But the health insurance I pay now is pretty high because I get paid in U.S. dollars, and then based on the currency rate, like I guess my income is like gets into a certain bracket, and I'm just like, damn, this is expensive, the health insurance. But
everywhere.
right, but then I always, because I'm American, I think back, well, it's better than the U.S. Sorry, guys. It's like I'm dude. I'm so. That's one thing that's yeah. That scares me. And my wife and I have talked about like should we ever go back? Because I work remotely. I can go back to we go back to the U.S. But then for various reasons we're like no. For us right now, Japan just seems the best place for as far as social. Like my wife's parents can be nearby, and also the social health care, and also the health insurance, and then the pricing as far as cost of living is much lower. Even though I'm not in Tokyo, I'm in Yokohama, so it's like it's still like it's not Inaka, it's not like the countryside, but it's still very much city. But I'm not like I'm not in like the Yokohama city area. I'm like further out, so like it's fairly like pretty affordable, especially with yeah. And because I get paid in U.S. dollars, like with the exchange rate, like dude, I'm so happy like to be living in Japan right now. Like, um, that said, I get what you're saying as far as like there's a cultural aspect to it too, as far as paternity leave. Like, well, isn't the woman supposed to take care of everything, right? Like it kind of in Japan, there's like they're thinking like, oh, that's the woman's job, right? But that's changing now. There's more in more like modern Japan. Like the man is supposed to be able to do his pull his weight, right? A little
Yeah.
bit more, but in like traditional, and it's interesting because Nick, you mentioned your wife being from Midwest. Like that mentality is still very much in Japan, where the wife, becoming a homemaker is totally like that was basically my wife's generation. Like that was the norm. Like the wife becomes the homemaker, and it's not so much now this generation, but there's still that mentality of like, okay, the man's supposed to be the breadwinner, and then the wife, she can take off more time for the kid. So yeah, that's the feeling I get, anyways.
I think we
Uh,
should probably wrap it up pretty soon.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
getting late.
it's getting late. Okay, final thoughts about. Let's do final thoughts about. I guess one thing I was curious about, like, so now that you have kids, what are some like things that you like values that you want to instill in your kids as far as like kind of like big picture things like I guess you for so I'll start like for myself like having a kid is I don't know it's just a beautiful thing, right? And my father passed away last year, and it was a pretty it was really sad for me because my father passed fairly quickly. We didn't have a chance. He like went into a coma, and this is from a pre-existing condition he had. He had myasthenia gravis, which is a muscle weakness, and he choked on some food and he went into a coma due to lack of oxygen to his brain. So I didn't really have a chance to say goodbye to him when he was conscious. So I'll keep it short then. But basically, yeah, it was. And then shortly afterwards, my wife got pregnant, and I don't know. I just thought, I don't know, you could say it's a sign or whatever, but it was such. I really wish he could be. He could see his granddaughter, but I don't know. I think the values that he kind of gave to me about being proud of who I am. He's always talked about the she family, right? And that's something I want my daughter to be proud of too, is being that she's proud of her father, like I was proud of my father. So I'm curious to sorry guys, I'm kind of curious to hear what kind of values or things that you want your kids to take from you, and maybe some of the lessons that you learned from your parents. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I feel like it's such an admirable thing to want for a kid. I think I did think about this similar question, especially when my kids were first born, and I had just a couple of things that I aspired for them, and one is not super complicated, but one was just that they would be able to find joy in the world, and the second thing would be that as they came across difficulties in life, that they would have means of getting through that. Um, but over the last year or two, I think I've amended it. The list, there's just a list of two, just a little bit, and I think one thing that I actually now prioritize over others, the other things, is just being able to show kindness to others.
Hmm.
So that being now the new number one, and then the other two are still there. But yeah, that's something that um, that's just how I've been thinking about um, what I would want for my kids. I think that there's a lot of specifics that I haven't really defined. Like there aren't specific activities I'm trying to think about for them, or political leanings, or anything like that. But I think, yeah, I would hope that they would be kind, thoughtful, and also have some ways of getting through the tough times.
Hmm.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with my younger kid today on the way back for basketball practice. One of the things I had to tell him is that you have to have develop that self-discipline. There are a lot of things that you're not going to want to do, not going to like to do, but you have to do them. And
Hmm.
you have to like strive to be good at doing those things. And those habits, learning them early on, that there are always going to be things that you're not going to want to do, but you have to show up and do them, and you have to do it well, and then always strive to, improve upon that. Because
Hmm.
those things, I feel like these days, kids kind of give up a lot pretty easily,
Hmm.
and they just trying to like get out of doing things that they have to do. And I remember seeing this weird meme where like or not even a meme, it was like a video of a Chinese mom saying like I make decisions for my kid because they don't have the knowledge to make the right they don't have the knowledge to think about consequences or the wisdom to think about consequences of those decisions. So I have to make those decisions and I have to like model that for them.
Hmm.
So I think that I I think that's where I kind of made a mistake. I gave my kids a little bit too much leeway, but in lots of ways, you just have to like show them, and you can explain it to them if you want, but you just have to keep making those decisions because they're not going to make the best decisions. They're kids. So,
Do you allow them to make mistakes? Like let them make those bad decisions that you see from far away?
yeah, I do. I mean, I let them make those decisions, but then I point out the consequences of what those decisions are
Hmm.
because I don't think my kids think that far ahead.
Right. I mean, when I was a kid, yeah, I try to put myself in their shoes. Yeah, I totally, yeah, I made some stupid decisions before. Yeah.
But maybe it's a guy thing. I have nieces who think a lot farther ahead than my kids.
Nick, do you have any insight on that? Your kids being daughters,
Oh, like just
better
learning
better
about.
decision making than boys.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they're not. They don't really make a whole lot of decisions yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of just. It's hard enough to just get them to decide on, do they want mac and cheese or pizza for dinner
Yeah.
right now, at least.
Yeah.
But no, no, no. I think it's definitely a challenge. I I feel like I've been reading a lot of different books about, trying to raise kids. And I think there's just so many different ways you can go about it. And yeah, there's just, it's, yeah, trying to steer a human brain is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
One last thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn this. Probably not in Japan, but I've come across classmates and stuff who are only kids and where the parents dote on them and never say no. And those kids are the worst kids. Those kids are
Hmm.
dicks. And I've we've disassociated with a bunch of those. We like shoot down play dates with those kids. They're assholes.
Oh. Okay. Like the revolves around them, kind of thing.
Yeah, their parents never say no. They don't discipline them. I actually had to discipline somebody else's kids actually. They were yeah. I had no qualms about it because they were like running over this mom who was like shooting a film project for the kids' class. It was like a film festival, and they
Okay.
weren't listening to her. And I came to help ferry them to someplace else. And she goes, I'm angry, Dan. They're not listening to. I was like, you know what? They're fifth graders. Let me go talk to them. The shoot is over. And then the kid starts crying. I was like, it doesn't matter. You guys are like not listening to the mom. And
Yeah.
this kid goes, I was listening. And then I said, are you telling me the mom is lying to me and you're telling me the truth? And the kid said nothing because I knew that guy was an asshole. I know that kid. My kids told me that kid's an asshole. So I had no qualms. I go, this is over. You guys are
Oh,
all going home.
right. Not yeah. Knowing the boundaries and setting boundaries for kids, I think it's
You
super
got it.
important.
You
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Because
like try to see it.
that's like a whole nother podcast is parenting styles, right? That's like, cause like, yeah, I don't know what there's some people who are like, oh, you just let them do whatever. I guess there's two extremes, right? There's like maybe the Western style, oh, they're kids are pure, let them do whatever they want, and then there's maybe like more like too restrictive, right? So you have to find a balance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Let's yeah. Oh, speaking about balance, yeah, let's go to our balance question. What's something you guys are doing now to stay balanced? For myself, I got a herniated disc recently with my lumbar spine area. I think it was from deadlifting
yeah.
heavy. Yeah, so I don't think I have the best form. So I'm trying to work on strengthening my core. So I'm like doing more planks and stuff, and then like light workouts like walking. I try to walk right. So it was snowing this morning, so I went out for a walk. And it was snowing. I was taking pictures on my walk. So that's pretty refreshing. Getting some fresh air in the morning, some sunlight, and that's something that's with this whole pregnancy thing. If I always just think about it, I just feel like yeah, it's tiring, right? You want to get some fresh air. So that's what I'm doing. What about you guys?
Yeah, for me, I guess it's more of a practice of having some sort of, I guess, maybe a value that I'm like overall in life that I'm trying to head towards, and feeling like I am both bearing fruit from that, from the work I've done in the past, but also putting out down work that will benefit me in the future. Sort of like, the almost like an analogy would be you're harvesting some crops and then you're planting some crops as seeds as well.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, being able to feel like that is sort of um, in the sense like I'm sort of working towards the long term and I'm seeing results of that right now, and I'm also still trying to work towards something in the future. I think that's like in a very vague sense that's what keeps me going and feeling like it helps like align my what I'm doing, helps prioritize for me, and I think kind of helps everything kind of fit into place for me.
Do you have like a maybe a example, like a small example? I guess. Yeah.
Sure. So I think kind of going back to I feel like I've read a lot of books about raising kids, and so if I have like let's say if I have a goal in life to to like inspire expression, and then maybe if I'm applying that to my kids, um if I feel like I am teaching them empathy, or I'm trying to um give them, model for them how to deal with their emotions or deal with situations that are kind of big for where they are in life, then I feel like I'm both seeing them. I might see them be able to deal with certain situations that surprise me, and I'm also feeling like I am working with them towards achieving some of those goals, about both for what I want to do in terms of helping them in the world, and becoming something that where they eventually could be independent
Hmm.
and thriving in the world.
Right. I think that independence is key, right? Like, we don't want our kids to grow up like too dependent on us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan?
Um, Something I'm doing to keep balance. It's kind of hard. I used to do kung fu, and then I can't now because I have to get my knee scoped in a few weeks.
Oh,
So, yeah,
what's
getting
up with your
old.
knee, if I may ask? Or yeah.
Meniscus. I think it's a meniscus. It doesn't show up on the MRI, but I'm pretty sure it's a meniscus, some sort of meniscus tear. Might be really, really minor. I tried PRP, but it's okay. I mean, I can run and do things, but it hurts. It didn't hurt as much. It doesn't hurt as much, but uh, so
Can you?
after that, I'll
Um,
work out.
so you can't do any. You can't even do Tai Chi, maybe.
I can do Tai Chi. It's still not, it doesn't feel great. I
Okay.
can do it, but the Tai Chi doesn't. I just need to like exert the energy. It's from work,
Hmm.
the stress. When you do Kung Fu, you're doing it fast and you're doing it hard, and you want to like feel completely drained. A Tai Chi doesn't do that for me.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, you don't want to push yourself and then get even a worse tear, I guess, right?
I
So,
don't know. I don't know.
yeah.
At this point, I figure if I don't, if I am not wearing out my body, then I'm not putting it to good use.
Okay.
What am
Okay.
I
Last
saving it
thing.
for?
Well, yeah, I mean, you still have a few years to go, right? Till your kids, they need a dad who can pick them up, I guess, right? At least, yeah.
They're 11, 13. I'm not picking them up.
One thing for language corner, yay! One thing I got is Japanese. A phrase I learned recently was called shita shiki. Shita shiki naka ni mo reigi ari. So shita shiki is like close friends or family. Shita shiki naka ni is like close friends or family. Mo means also. Reigi means like respect and manners. Ari means are, you should have those things. So basically, the phrase means that even between friends or family, there still has to be a modicum of respect. Or there, like I guess the English equivalent that I found online was what was it? It was like good fences make good neighbors. A hedge between keeps friendships green. Interesting, yeah. But I think it makes sense because it's like, yeah, I have a yeah. Sometimes I hang out with a friend, and I don't know if you guys ever had this. You hang out with a friend, and then you pay for the lunch or something. You're like, oh, I'll pay for it, and they don't say thank you. Oh man, that's like the worst feeling. So, anyways, that's where that phrase came from. I was like, but eventually, yeah, I patched up with that friend. But anyways, do you guys have any sort of languages or phrases that you kind of like think are cool or for language corner?
I thinking about the question, I was thinking back to a book that I read a couple years ago. It's called How to Be Perfect. It's a book
Okay.
about the history of moral philosophy, written by the guy who created The Good Place, I think, the show.
Oh,
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I mean, for as I guess maybe in parallel to the show, like he did a lot of serious studying about philosophers and their ideas about morals in life. But anyway, um, to me, I think I would sum up the book in a phrase that, in terms of like how we should live our life or how to be perfect, is just to try your best and reflect. Because basically, there is not. I mean, spoiler alert, but there isn't a way to be perfect, and it's just
Oh, yeah.
there's just so many different ideas about how to best live your life. But to me,
Right.
that's the phrase that comes to mind. Yeah, try your best and reflect. That's, to me, that's what I've my takeaway from the book.
Oh, that's great. Sometimes I get stuck in reflection though. Yeah, but no, that's great. Dan?
Oh, the I don't have phrases, but the word for breast milk is bomu.
Oh,
Bomu
right,
in
right.
Japanese. Yeah.
Bo new. Bo
Bomu.
meaning mother, and then new being
New.
milk.
Yeah. Yeah.
New. Yeah, I have
Bonu. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, bo new. I
Gyunyu.
have
Bonu.
I have a list of phrases in Japanese on the wall here. I used the ChatGPT to like give me some lists in Japanese and English because like it's gonna be tough, guys. I go in the hospital. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys saying? I have some of the keywords vocab now, but I'm just drilling it. Yeah. All right, thanks,
Oh,
guys. Thank you for your time, Nick. This was great. I really appreciate you sharing like your experiences and your and yeah. Let's hope let's chat again. If not a podcast, but just chat. It'd be great to catch up again. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both. Really had a great time. It was
thanks,
great
Nick.
Cool.
to
Thank
chat with
you.
you all.